So I want to talk to you about an analogy that you may well have heard before, but I want to kind of apply it to some things that you might need to sort of think about for your fat loss journey. All right. And this analogy is thinking of your calories as money. All right. And you'll have heard this sort of thing before, and it's nothing new. And I'm not trying to steal anybody's idea or complain that this is my own. But if we think about calories that we eat, we spend money on our calories, and that's the equivalent of the money that we spend. If we think of calories that we burn through exercise, through walking and just living, that is the same as the money that we earn. So we eat to spend and we burn to earn. Okay, so that's that analogy. Now if you think about money, and if you, let's say you're wanting to save money, all right, so you're wanting to save towards a goal, a holiday, whatever, then we have to spend less on this side than we earn. All right, the money coming in has to be more than the money that we expend going out. And as long as that's the case, then that's fine. If the money out is the same as the money coming in, we don't save. And it's the same with calories. If we want fat loss, so if we want to get rid of our body fat, then we have to spend fewer calories on the food that we eat than the calories we burn through activity and exercise. All right, so we spend less on this side and burn more on that side. If we want to save more, then we can spend less, burn even more. Now, obviously, we don't want to make it so that it becomes unbearable. You know, in the same way that when you're trying to save money, you cannot kind of cut everything out to try and save as money as fast as possible. I mean, you could do, but it's painful, it's hard, you can't do it long term. You know, if you cut out all of your luxuries and lived off tinned soup and water for a long period of time just to save lots and lots and lots and lots of money, then that becomes really, really difficult. And at some point, you may well think, no, sod this, I can't do it. And you have a splurge, and then you think you've ruined it. It's the same with calories. If we drastically cut the calories that we are spending on the food, so if we undereat, really underconsume, and then try and massively burn more, so we've got a big deficit and we are saving lots and lots of this kind of energy and burning lots and lots of body fat, at some point that becomes really, really difficult to sustain, and we crash. Yeah, we might have a binge, we might just stop doing it, we might give up. So we need to make sure that it is sustainable. We need to think about the level of saving. So you make compromises. All right, you might think, well, actually, I don't need to spend money on this. We can look at slightly cheaper options, and that'll save money. We don't need to be going out every weekend, or we don't need a takeaway every weekend. We can save money that way. It's the same with your fat loss. You need to make compromise. So we look at maybe 0-calorie drinks instead of having the full fat ones. We look at, instead of going and drinking a whole latte, full fat latte at Costa, we look at maybe having a black coffee instead to save calories, or making our own so that we're saving calories and money. So there are kind of similarities there. The other way of looking at it, and this one's a little bit of a deeper one, in that if you spend more than you earn, you are going to go into debt. Now, initially, you don't experience the pain of that. You might stick things on your credit card. Doesn't matter, because initially, you don't see that debt. You spend money on the credit card. It's great. In the same way that we overconsume food. We don't notice the implications. Over the next few weeks and months, you might notice a little bit of an impact. In terms of body fat, we may notice that we might put a little bit of weight on. In terms of your credit card, it might be that you get the credit card bill coming in and you think, oh, right, we'll pay that, but I've not got money for this, so I'll stick more money on the credit card. And gradually, over time, that pain becomes bigger. And it's the same with the body fat. So over time, as we increase body fat, the implications become more serious with your kind of long-term and more serious illnesses. So things like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, heart disease. All right. So these things start to build up. So we see that money analogy pairing up really well. Now I want you to use that money analogy to think about your weekend. If your goal, let's say money wise is to save for a holiday or for a new car or home improvements, then what do we need to do that? We may need to compromise on what we do at the weekend. So instead of maybe having a takeaway every weekend, we have it every other weekend, and we make our own meals at home to save money. Instead of going out with the family every weekend, we might do it once a month, and we look at cheaper options. So instead of going to these Alton Towers or theme parks or museums or whatever, we look at cheaper options. So it might be that we go to the park, or we look for cheap options. So National Trust membership, get that, and you can go to these things, go to different places free. So we look at ways of saving money at the weekend so that we can save more towards our goal. And it's the same for fat loss. You need to look at what you are doing at the weekend. If your weekend is Friday night through to Sunday, and you are, perhaps having a glass of wine or two Friday night, Saturday night, and then going out for a Sunday meal with a glass of wine at lunch on a Sunday, then you need to rethink that, because at that point, that weekend becomes close to 35% of your week where you are over consuming. And remember, if we want to work towards our goal, then we need to be consistent with our calorie deficit, consistent with our exercise for 80 to 85% of the time. And those numbers don't marry up. That 85% consistent means 15% for the things that we enjoy. 15% to 35%, you can see where I'm going. So you need to look at, if your goal is fat loss, if your goal is to focus on your health, then we need to look at that weekend and see what changes do we need to make. I'm not saying that you need to stop everything, but you need to look at compromise. So if you are going out on a Saturday night to have a meal and a few drinks with friends, and that's happening most weekends, then we need to look at what's happening for the rest of it. Then Friday night needs to become like every other night of the week. Maybe eating a light protein-rich breakfast for Saturdays, and then Sunday perhaps having a brunch and then a later afternoon meal, so that we can compromise over the weekend. And that's the key word here, is compromise, restraint for consistency. All right, so if the weekends are the things that perhaps are holding back your fat loss journey and your fat loss progress, then you need to look at what you do at the weekend and think about compromise, restraint to bring back consistency. Hope that helps.